Our program for Bohemian Rhapsodies really worked out nicely. Our cellist, Kelsey Howell, performed the Dvorak Cello Concerto.
The first time I heard it was a performance of Yo-Yo Ma playing it when I had just started playing the cello, which was very inspiring. The piece is very symphonic and grand in nature and has a very juicy, romantic, triumph over struggle arc to it, but at the same time remains completely sincere because Dvorak wrote a lot of himself into the piece, of his own heartbreaks and struggles. So the piece has a very genuine human experience, and I think that's what makes it very special.
Both of the pieces on the program, the Eighth Symphony and the B minor cello concerto, were written towards the end of Dvorak's life. One of the coolest things that I find about Dvorak is he was one of the few composers that made that impossible trek crossing the Atlantic Ocean, ended up in America. Dvorak was obsessed with this idea of an American school. Dvorak really related and resonated with African American spirituals, with Native American folk music. And one of the things that he recognized in American music is that diversity, all these different cultures that come from all different walks of life and all over the globe, studying music and all these different styles merging together are what would create the future of music, and it did. And the Eighth Symphony actually was written right before he came to America, and the cello concerto was written after he saw the Niagara Falls, and he said that's a symphony in B minor. It ended up turning into a cello concerto. Definitely the greatest cello concerto ever written. With the Eighth Symphony, Dvorak sort of turned into a more populist frame of mind. When Dvorak wrote the Eighth Symphony, he said this is going to be the future of symphonic composition. He was very reliant on this piece, making a big break with Viennese classicism. And he did so in the Eighth, and of course he did so in the Ninth. And out of that sort of populist movement that I think Dvorak brought to America, this great new era of music that makes people happy, that has mass appeal, pop music, is really born in the 1890s, partly because of Dvorak. So you kind of have this American influence being infused into this program, and I think that's perfectly where our Mason Bates Warehouse Medicine fits in. Warehouse Medicine comes from a truly American symphony called the B-Sides by Mason Bates, written about 10 years ago. This piece focuses on disco music in like the 70s and the 80s in Detroit. And coincidentally, this is almost the midpoint between where Dvorak spent his time when he was in America. He was in Manhattan at the conservatory in New York, and then he would sojourn to the Czech colony in Spillville, Iowa. So, and he loved trains, he loved technology, and little did he know, 200 years later, our American composer, Mason Bates, would put together this piece that merges the orchestra with electronica. So in the piece of music, there's an electronic sounds sampling that is sent to us by the composer that we actually will play at a laptop. So all the laptop training that people are doing in the 21st century will hopefully pay off for the Mason Bates.